All right, good evening. This is the July meeting of the Conservation Commission. And we will start off with a roll call. So we'll start off on my left,
Tom Olson, member.
Larry Dunn, Chair,
Ray Rafferty, Vice Chair.
Michelle Fitzpatrick, Secretary.
and I did hear from Kristen, and she is in France. She says she's sleeping. So, and Anne has COVID, and so she's tired.
Oh,
Which he just found out, and Conrad also has a problem, so, but he's gonna join from home. So let's bring him in. Okay. Not Mercy.
So.
There
we go.
Yeah, no,
There.
there he is. All right. Conrad, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I can certainly do that.
Right, well, we're doing the roll call, so you get to announce your presence.
Oh, great, perfect.
Okay.
I guess he didn't take you my word.
I think you calling on him is
That's his
because
presence.
that was the presence.
Okay. So we now, yes, we do have a quorum. We have 5. We shall continue. So I want to welcome Conrad to the August. I'm sure this is the pinnacle of his political and charitable
Best position
best
ever.
position ever. Yeah.
It can't get any better.
Right, it can't get any better. All right, so the first item of business is approval of meetings from June 2nd. That is in the agenda.
I move we accept the meeting minutes from June 12th as presented.
Second.
Any discussions or corrections, addendums?
Yep, I have one. I had to leave the meeting early,
Okay, I can make a note of that.
and so I was not able to
Oh, yes.
vote closure of a
Your
motion to
spirit.
adjourn.
You
but
got
I
it.
did.
Spirit, you did.
It's a spirit.
In spirit, you did.
In spirit, I did.
You got
Any
it.
other comments or corrections? All right, so I'll call for a vote with the motion as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's a unanimous. And public communications, so this gets interesting. So a variety of things, well, there's no public out there, right?
No.
No, no one else on there right now.
So the communications that I recorded were, GCA copied me on their letter to the town council on NIPS. I also spoke at the town council meeting based upon the letter that we agreed to, the letter we agreed to in a prior meeting. So I summarized that letter. And I don't know if you've seen me, let me bring this up. Why is it not coming up? Come on. This is the stuff out just before I came. And oops. Now it comes in. There it is. I have it open. All right, let me promote this. Where's my chair? Here it is. Let me bring this over here so I can read it. You can read it. No. Oh, come on.
Page width.
Yeah,
if
do
you
page
want.
width, yep.
Page width.
There we go. Okay. I mean, the sense of the letter was pretty much in line with what we said, which was, hey, guys, do something a little more substantive than you did last time. Now, I believe that the NIPS topic isn't till this next meeting.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so we were a little early,
It's all right.
but it's vacation, summertime, et cetera. So
They get your letter, so.
they got
yeah,
the letter,
yep.
so we'll let them ignore it like they did everything else we've asked them for. I'm sorry, that sounds a little. I'll get to that. Soon. Okay, so that's that. And they did suggest a couple of projects to do. But essentially,
It's on the agenda for tomorrow night. At the
yeah,
town
yeah,
council.
yeah. I think, yeah, I did see that. And hopefully they'll do something more than beautification or even cleanup stuff. So I'll skip over.
They have,
Line nips.
and the town council does have the GCA letter.
Yes. And they should have our letter,
Mark Berry letter,
even though I forgot to date it. I didn't
and but
say
they
it.
did not include our letter in the package.
Really?
I'm looking at the package right now. They have the agenda item. And then there's just a note from Mark Berry and then one from
I'll check on that.
request.
Could you follow up and
And then the GCA letter. That's it.
make sure that we're properly represented?
It's a GSA letter, if I may ask, similar to
GCA.
GCA, yeah, yeah, it's very similar to. It's,
this part.
that's the one he just scrolling by.
I scrolled it real quick because it's similar to the do something better than we've been doing.
Right.
Try projects, do some, matter of fact, they even went into the waste management program. We suggested as well.
We strongly recommend David Aldridge as Scara as an essential expert and that type of stuff.
The other letter that I got, as well as a bunch of other people, was Fiorillo memo that went to the town. That was, remember, he joined us in our last meeting
Oh, great.
and threatened us with litigation.
Yep.
So we did get a letter with a lot more threats in it. The position is we do not respond. And we will let the town attorney and town manager, et cetera, take care of anything with that. So if you get any communications from him directly, please feel free to A, ignore it, and B, forward it to town manager. Any other public communications that you've got?
Not that I got. Nope.
Okay,
I mean, if I can do it, now, the communications from last month from Doug Costa, was a gentleman who lived adjacent to the EV property. I did talk to him. I said that you would ask that I give him a call, and I reached out to him and kind of told him the situation that basically planning and zoning, we had not received any application yet for that. And that, you know,
until we do.
until we do, we have nothing to evaluate. So
So and you're just you'll keep an eye on that. and
Yep.
Give us a heads up. Okay,
Absolutely.
appreciate that. Okay, old business. Some of this I think I know the answer to, but on the open space inventory, do we have any updates to the working database?
No.
No. Okay, I didn't think so.
I checked with Noah. He's back from his vacation. I had two questions into him. One was not related to this, to the inventory, but I did ask him about the inventory. He says it's at the bottom of his list of stuff to go do. He did get back to it. This is putting, the thing that he has to do is that he has, the inventory is getting updated for like minimum, you know, like if there's a new item that's on there that's to be, he's picking that stuff up. But the next version, I was still looking for is the conservation easements layer. And he hasn't started that at all. He knows how to do it, but it's still, nothing's happened there.
I mean, Noah's done a lot of good work for us. I don't want to be too pushy, but I also don't want to forget about it.
No, he knows that it's there. And,
Okay,
but,
I'm just saying, at what point do we go back and
it's a difficult task.
yeah, no.
I won't argue. He knows what he's doing. He prototyped, he did two easements. He prototyped those is on his working of the inventory. And he found that it was more difficult than he thought. And so he's trying to figure out ways to do that. And I agree, this is a low priority. It's only 200 acres, you know, for the but it's 70 line items and 70 parcels that he has to go to the drawing and then put this, essentially manually take the map that he has, because I basically given him all the map locations. And then basically hand draw it in on the, onto the inventory.
Okay, so Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but unlike utilities and other things, you don't really have a database of conservation easements.
We do not know, correct.
So the best thing available is now our standalone Excel spreadsheet, which has all the easement data on that.
I think so, probably.
Okay, so it would be nice to get it in there to support the town.
No arguments,
staff.
and he's
Okay.
knows to do it, but
Yeah,
he's trying to come up with a clean way of doing this.
And on that note, I think the other piece too is to be very clear how to differentiate it from other open space. So if a property has it, it doesn't mean it's accessible by the public,
right.
you know, so
Yeah.
that's the, you know, like.
It has to be, yeah,
It's probably going to be another color. You
Yeah.
know,
And that's fine. That's the
fine.
company. He's still working all those.
Yeah.
He's got to really think through that. But with that, there's been advances in the GIS system, and he's dealing with version
version
systems
upgrade.
and all this kind of stuff too at the same time.
Right.
So he's trying to trying to figure out where this is all going and how to
All right, well,
incorporate this.
Let's revisit this the end of the summer
Yeah,
and see if, you know, I'd like to get it done
this year.
this year. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was
We got
thinking.
6 months here.
Yeah,
It's a
okay.
this year project.
This
They
year
were halfway
project.
through the year, but
Yes, okay. All right, so that's working database and if you, Conrad, if you have any questions on what the hell you're talking about, please feel free to jump in and ask, okay?
Yeah, we'll do, no problem.
Okay. Now I do know that there's a new one, you know, the parts and rec inventory, which we did send, I guess. I did a little bit of intro and I forwarded to Mark Berry for his action. So that's a to-do. Now I'm trying to remember what the heck I told him.
well, you had the list here starting on page 8 of the handout today, of the agenda package.
Right, no, but I'm trying to remember what I sent to him.
You sent an email to him with that attachment, that Excel spreadsheet as an
Right.
attachment.
I'm trying to ask what the to-do was so that we can keep it.
Well, the to-do is for him to take that to the Parks and Rec Commission and incorporate it into his next revision to the Parks and Rec regulation that has to be approved by the commission and then forwarded to the town council as a referral for their approval. And we basically gave him a brand new section 1 of which is the inventory of all the parcels. And right now, the inventory that's in the current regulation from 2015 listed, I gave him the same format. However, I expanded the format rather than just a name and maybe having acreage on it, to having definitely acreage with the PIN number and a name and a classification. So, because they just had it by the classifications, groupings, and then
Yeah, I didn't get a response from, do you know offhand, Dave, when the next Parks and Rec plan?
I don't off the top of my head. No, I'm not sure.
I mean, we'd like to tie it to that.
Yep.
We're trying, you know, want a
I can-
unique update.
Do you,
But,
do you want me to reach out to him or would it be better
Yeah,
to
no.
follow up with your email? And say,
well, I did, on the 29th, I did send them an email requesting the update and providing the data.
Yep.
And we do know, as Tom said, that it's going to be hopefully in the next forthcoming update. So yeah, why don't,
I'll ask.
yeah, so I've been bugging them lately. So if
yeah,
all I need is,
CRC meets on Thursday of this week.
yeah. So if they have the date, then I can bug them related to that date. How's that? Okay.
Got it.
Back
And
to,
it's not on the agenda for Thursday's meeting.
okay. Let's see. Open space planning. Tom did provide some recommendations. Is that in the agenda? I don't have it listed in the agenda. I think it was just in an email. For future acquisitions.
so That was part of the working database. Wasn't that?
No.
Because you said there was no, I have a note here. You had no attachment for that.
Oh, well, because that was just gonna be a discussion.
Yeah, okay.
Not,
Like, I know we talked about this.
no, we talked about it, but well, I guess I gotta back up because the background was tied into the budget discussion, tied into the, the conclusion of the acquisition of the Wellco property. And the other topic on today's agenda is another 82 acres, Iowa grant recommendation coming later. So the view, and I'll throw it open for discussion, was we've been disappointed in 9 of the last 10 years where they zeroed out the 25,000 recommended by the POCD to put aside land. So we met with Parsi said we met with Tom and I met with her, focusing on the budget and changes we'd like to see from the conservation committee. One of which is we expressed our disappointment that nothing seems to happen. B, that he is not supporting it when they ask him. So we had a discussion and came out of that with a proposal that we need to discuss and need to formally get back by the end of September. Which is the date he gave us. That's when they're kicking off the budget review. So the proposal on the table for discussion amongst us is, rather than continuing to push and beat ourselves against the wall for 25,000, is shift it into 2 different directions. One is the CIP that's there is saying, look, we don't, yes, we recognize that we're at 27%, 26%, 28, somewhere in that.
28.5
28.5%. So.
by the state definition.
There's, who's counting? But we really want to focus on very selective properties, so having something general, this is what we want to do though, is have enough funds in there. As we get to that, gets back to the topic of what are the projects we want to look at. If we want to do that, then really all we do is want to cap the fund. Right, at 75,000, that would allow us to participate in doing surveys, background information, to be able to prepare a grant, whatever, not to buy it per se, but to have a set of funds available, which is a much smaller scope or much smaller ask than, let's say, at 25K forever, which we haven't been getting any of. Now, we do still get money. What's the latest on the fund based on developer input?
The last reported was at around 26,000 in the open space acquisition fund that's maintained by the
That's after
the finance department. That's what it was as of May 17th or something. The last time that it was voted on, when we got voted down.
Okay.
So
So
it was reported.
we're really looking at saying, let's build it up to 75. We might actually get there with developers, but if we actually.
Yes.
The rate this is going.
That is true.
Before we get there, but trying to change the dynamics of the town council. And it relates to the Oswald grant, because I know the attitude is, well, we have too much. And I don't want to even talk about it. They actually said that to me several times.
Wow, they think we have too much, huh?
Oh, yeah, and other interesting feedback, but. So that's one part, but then the second part, which is establish a new CIP, which deals with sustainability. And part of the charter of open space is sustainability when you look at it, and I did call up Megan, we had this discussion, she's chewing on it. And we'll get back to me again prior to the end of September, is suggesting you need to start putting money away for sustainability projects. Now, this is something that's going to be millions. This is not petty change, like quite frankly, the 25K, which was 0.4%, on my last calculation. So we need to get started and start to prime the pump with town council and say, listen, you don't spend $100+ K and hiring somebody to make and do plans and get grants, and then turn around and sit on your hands and do nothing. Right? So to kind of start to get the mental set that says, as these projects and recommendations come forward, we need to have money. Now, a subset of that, for example, does overlap, but I kind of did my Venn diagram, but does overlap with conservation. If we think a parcel of land that could be for salt marsh extensions, right, that we want to buy. If we want to invest in seagrass planting, right? I mean, there are things, even carbon sequestration, which is part of the whole.
To say almost everything sustainability would be conservation.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we're not getting into the utilities and infrastructure changes, the backflow check valves and things like that. All right. That's a stretch. I'm trying to say that there's an overlap without saying is that everything is or isn't, even though we said we'd address sustainability, each one of our items.
Right.
But my view is we shouldn't be getting into utility discussions,
That's true.
but we should get into all the other aspects, right? Whether, like I said, carbon sequestration, which deals with the.
Well, we
secret.
need to see what kind of project she's talking about, right?
That's my point. So that's why I chatted with her. She's gonna chew on it. And hopefully we could go in with not just our input, but the sustainability committee, assuming they leave it in place. I don't know if you've heard that,
I heard that
They put it
there was a
in-
proposal that was on the agenda and then
to-
taken
to
off the
kill it.
agenda to kill it.
to kill the sustainability task force. So that's a side comment.
Because they now have an employee.
Because some town councilors are concerned about what's happening at their meetings.
Like what?
Don't know, it was very vague, it was all this, it was on the agenda to disestablish
They're being too
the
successful, probably.
resiliency task force.
Oh, the task force itself.
Oh, the whole task force, right?
Task force, right? Which
Because
is
we-
similar to what
they're-
they did
they're-
with the TOP.
I guess to some degree, you could be making the argument, well, they've now been replaced by Megan.
Right.
Okay, so why do we need these people if she's already
Yeah,
here?
that's
You're already
my first
paying her
thought,
big
yeah.
salary. Why did you need these people?
Yeah, but be that as it may, to me, it's part of an overwhelming, in my perception, I'll speak personally, of trying to push back on these efforts, all these conservation
Right.
types of efforts. So I think we got to watch it carefully. But anyway, back to the point of getting with Megan, working with the sustainability task force, hopefully, and come in with it says, hey, here's our recommendation, what I'd be in here. And I suspect, it's going to be something like, we money either to begin pilot programs or other studies, or enough funds to be able to apply for grants. I mean, I suspect that's the first round. But we got to start thinking about this. I mean, some of these things are going to be a 10-year project or longer. But if we don't start now, I mean, we already had what? Congratulations, we have the highest the highest year on record as that they've ever had in the United States. Whippy, let's see if we can do that again. So, and that's just one aspect of it. So it's going to be a problem. So going back, that's more informational, other than I'm asking directionally, does that make sense to you guys? Do you endorse that so that we continue along those veins, or you want to suggest a change to that proposal that I guess thrown in the table?
And so Larry, can I put one thing out that you and I discussed? So we were going to discuss this, but we also said that this is something for the commission to think about and to come back and have a maybe a bigger conversation at that point. That's why we didn't include your draft CIP thing. And Larry obviously is working with Megan. So we actually have something more to look at. But just to think about that. Am I correct with that? That was
The answer is yes in detail, but I'm just talking about
no.
the approach.
The approach. Yep, absolutely.
Let's talk about the approach. We're
Yep.
not getting into details.
Yep, absolutely.
So comments
So,
on the
well,
approach.
you're trying to understand. So here's what I would say, that we need to see what she has in mind and then say, oh, these things are all Conservation Commission related. Let's proactively support the projects that also relate to us. And maybe that's what you said, I just didn't,
Kind of what I said.
Okay.
The Venn diagram, there's an overlap.
Right,
I
but-
want-
but
I wanna
yeah,
Focus on the part.
I was using a little bit different language perhaps than you did.
So
I know what a
noted.
Venn diagram is, however,
So noted.
my point is that, yeah, we should be more proactive in,
Yeah,
in
that's
supporting.
really
Yeah.
what I was going for. We need to be more proactive in this upcoming budget.
Sometime this fall, Megan's putting out a sustainability report. Right, in September or
You got a couple of things.
Probably close to October, yeah.
October. And I'm hoping that within that report are suggestions of ways to go forward on this, to be proactive about sustainability. With that, it's gonna come costs, you know, whether it be grants or programs to do following things. Would be the opportunity to take, to work with that report, work with them, support acquiring the funds or supporting it going forward. Convince the council that maybe some of these ideas they should support also.
Well, that's kind of direction I was going, but we got to start that. We got to get it into the budget cycle very early. And now the timing of her report versus the budget process, we don't want to lose a year.
Right.
So it may not have this, maybe it doesn't have the specifics, or maybe she should know enough about what she wants to do, even though the report is finished, that we can kind of have placeholders. That's what I was looking for, at least at the beginning of the budget process has placeholders. And as we get through that October, and her reports become more formal, then we could, beef up our support, beef up the actual task. So I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying, sometimes we wait too long and then it's like, oh, too bad, you should have been here last month. And I'm tired of that.
Oh, I understand. I'm just, I guess Michelle was saying, we're looking at. When you go forward to put a placeholder in, what is the substantive thing that we're still trying to support?
No, I agree. That's what we gotta work on between now and the end of September.
And as far as from my 2 cents, I think it's really gonna be, as far as in the sustainability area, 2 factors. One is an input from the task force. And then also from Megan.
Yep.
As a staff input. And so, and we're just we need to be paying more attention to that. And I don't think we have been as much as we possibly could as far, but with a greater, what Larry is, I think, proposing here is we have a greater focus on that. And kind of maybe even prodding these people.
Well, I've reached out to Megan, I'll reach out to the task force.
Yeah.
Assuming it doesn't actually matter if they formally are disbanded, they're still citizens who have a voice.
Yeah.
So, so either way, so I'll reach out to the own company.
But as a citizen, they won't be able to influence the budget process until very late. So-
Well, that then said.
So we're trying to influence it at the town manager input
Correct.
level.
And
when
that's,
the
and that's fine.
departments
So
are
we,
putting in
so
things.
we give them an access way of influencing it early, but. So there's no downside to that.
Yeah.
All right, so that's one of my to-dos. Oh. So, on future acquisitions, you made a couple of recommendations about 3 or 4 properties. You want to go into that now or leave that for a later?
I think we should, one thing that, and we had the whole taupe fiasco going on.
Yeah,
The last
didn't
couple
get
of
to
weeks.
that yet.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's really gonna play into that, and that's really what we need to be focusing in on, I think, to some degree. As far as on future acquisitions, I think that's really part of the POCD discussions and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing right now to go do.
All right, fair enough. I did not distribute that to everybody, perhaps.
I don't think so. It's not in the package.
Yeah, no, I held it out. Because I'm not, were we ready or not? I can send out informational work work product without necessarily having it on the agenda, correct?
Mhm. Yeah, I should be able to.
All right, so let's send background information, look call background information. In prep for,
August meeting.
Huh?
In prep for the next meeting,
I'm not even sure it's the next meeting, for some meeting, future meeting,
our future meeting. Okay.
future meeting. On, recommendations and acquisition. Because I do think it's got to fit together, so if it comes up, like we talked about earlier, if there's a way of tying that sustainability project, that's even better, so. We've kind of got to tie all this stuff together as we go forward. Having said that, the next section is on a status of the plan on conservation and development. I'll start off. One of the things that we have six sections that we're focusing on. The section that myself and Kristen are as waste management. Each one of our upcoming Conservation Commission meetings, we're going to focus on one of the six. So I picked the first one for waste management. I have Scara coming, David Aldrich, and also Stacy, who's the waste management go-to person in the town staff.
Yep.
I did list out a series of, here's what we'd like for you to present. You know, basically starting to get the background, the information, start to look at the cost basis, et cetera, to then jumpstart our action plan, which then obviously be the POCD. Now, granted, this is,
So we're doing, so you're doing that instead of having special meetings right now? Is that the
well,
idea?
it depends on how much you've got going on at the time. We've kind of died down a little bit. What we can do is limit it, and we could always push on the agenda, because we'll do them first. And depending on how discussions go, we'll clean up some items and may have to defer other items, you know, to the next meeting. But if we don't start on
We
this,
absolutely have to start, yeah.
so, because even if we do one a month or one every other month, I mean, that's a year.
Right.
If it's one every other month. So, like I said, 2020, and this has got to be done by 2020, what's this, the calendar on that?
2026.
Has to be
No, no,
approved.
I know that's
Oh,
right, I meant the
Before
first
that.
draft.
well, we need to have inputs in for the contractor that they're out hiring, right?
We're not hiring anyway, yet nothing has been written for that
No.
contract yet. The money just came through as the budget.
Okay,
We're
so
now
first
July
of the month.
1st, so.
So now so you have money now, and so now you've got to go write an RFP and then go hire the contractor. And then we should be, and when the contractor gets started, we should be able to say, here's some of our preliminary input from them. Where we want to see things go.
Just remember, the POCD process is run by planning and zoning.
Right.
So,
And-
you know, so
I had
you have a joint
another
meeting, yes.
discussion with Jeff.
Yep.
And he agrees. He said he would like to do it and have a joint session in October.
October.
So it's on my calendar to follow him up. And
Right, it is the plan of conservation and so.
Yeah, I-
We'll guarantee that they have the lead, but that doesn't mean we don't do
I
anything.
don't- Yeah.
No, not at all.
So,
And again, kind of what has been talked about before, looking at the 2016 POCD, has been some big question about whether or not we want another document that has 90 items to check off the list, or do we want something that's a little bit more specific,
We
bigger,
had-
broader, bigger picture
we
kind of stuff?
had that discussion. That's, so, you know, generally, we met with six.
Yeah.
All right, and so, you know, we'd like to focus on those,
Yeah.
not 100. We did
Right.
address every one of the freaking actions that was in the last POCD.
Yeah, we did.
For the record.
I know you did. I gave you the update.
Okay.
So. We didn't complete all of them.
I
but
didn't say we
didn't-
completed,
yeah,
we
we
addressed
addressed them. We
And
did,
we
yes.
completed a goodly
We did, yeah, absolutely.
So it's out there on the website, if anyone
Yeah,
wants to
yeah,
check.
yes, it is.
Okay, so,
But Ledyard does have a POCD that's much more thin
Yeah.
and much more focused.
So does Hartford.
all right, so anyway, that's, so these things are kind of sort of coming together as you kind of look at the different threads. So we're pushing on all those threads. So that's the status, at least for waste management. So I want to, before I shift to the other five and ask for your status, I'm going to ask Conrad, as a new member. All of the members have kind of signed up to one of the six. So I think I asked earlier on what's your, do you have an interest in one of those six?
Oh, yeah, I need to go back and look at that email. I'm sorry, that was a while ago.
All right, well, that's your to do.
The one we don't have any plan for at all yet is education. Because Kristen and I both had other ones, so we've been working on the other.
Oh, yeah, there's other, right, there's six, and then there's other activities that folks are working.
No, education is one of the six,
I thought that was outreach.
or outreach.
Okay.
To me, education and outreach are the same thing.
It's on the list as outreach.
All right, outreach, we haven't spelled out anything specific for outreach.
So.
So, you know.
So that's the one that's needed right now, is what you're saying.
Right, that's the one that no one's made an attempt to write anything out for yet.
All right, sounds like I have a plan, or I have an assignment.
Thank you.
Like that.
Climate change and resiliency. We had our vice chair on that, little puppy.
It's expecting your report.
He's
Oh,
writing-
I'm
he's
sorry.
writing his report
No.
out.
Nothing to report. Still trying to piece it all together. There's been looking at what we actually have. You drive by the shore and you look at the properties that are in the FEMA map that are in that zone of flooding, and then look at physically how much of that area the town actually has that's could be inundated, and then what is actually behind it. And are those areas that will now become threatened as sea level rises? How much of that is actually under development pressure? In other words, putting up houses as a stopgap for expansion of the marshes to go inland. Trying to put that together from just by visually going and looking at it from a water standpoint.
Well, here's my thought, since we just had a discussion about sustainability, working on the budget, an October report potentially, so I'm thinking that this session for us would be probably October. You know, where we bring Nugget in, we bring in the sustainability, you know, and kind of go through just what you said. What can we do? What actions from our perspective, conservation perspective, might be appropriate? So, and that also ties into the budget. So I think there's certain things we want to do at certain time.
Right.
So that strikes me as a hope. Is that
Sure.
line up with? Okay.
And Larry, I should say too that both Megan and Michelle are coming in the October meeting right now, anyways, to give us an
Oh, and
update
for MS4.
MS4 and also for grants that are being worked on. Now, she might be able to do both.
I was thinking, is that too much?
It depends. You know, like it depends on the conversation. Right, yeah.
Do you, I mean, ask them how long they,
Yeah, I can.
yeah, ask how.
We have time, you know.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that, Jesus, the MS4 conversation's a half an hour at least.
Could be, yeah. And,
All right.
well, and I should say, okay, so something to think about. So Bray's correct, is that as part of the downtown Mystic study, the plan is to have the final reports out sometime in October. So whether it's October 1st versus the 31st, who knows? And obviously, if Megan and Michelle are coming in, we always have an early meeting. So the report may not be out at that point. It could be, might be better to maybe push towards November. I know we're getting a little further. I know, you can, hey, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm talking specifically about recommendations of the downtown Mystic study, that report.
Okay.
We could talk about the CIP stuff before that, I think. But I'm just trying to think like if
I'm starting to think a special meeting maybe in October.
could be.
Well, after we get that report, have a chance to digest it, right?
Right, absolutely. So just to ponder, we have time. We're in July, we have time,
All right, yeah.
so. That's what I'm here for.
All right, all right. But you're gonna check to see how much,
I will,
that-
yeah.
how much they think they're gonna need for what the original request was. And maybe we just tee up, objectives for a secondary meeting.
Yeah.
Is now that I'm starting to think about that then it's a shorter time. It's
Yeah.
not discussing specifics, discussing what we want to discuss.
Right. And I also think it's helpful, like similar to what you sent to Stacy and Dave, asking those questions,
Right.
that as we have staff or whoever outside resources come in to speak, it would be great. So even for MS4, what are the questions that we would like to get answered? What, so that Michelle is prepared to answer those questions that specifically that conservation is most concerned with. What are the questions we'd like Megan to discuss? And the challenges or whatever that may be. So I think it is helpful what you sent out, Larry, to have that little bit of a template to drive the conversation.
Yeah, no, well, that's why I sent out.
Yep. No, I know. It's good. I'm saying it's good. That's a good, I think it's helpful for whoever we have in.
Yeah.
So,
Well, MS4 was specifically because we've got it in each of our,
Well, the MS4,
Yes.
we incorporated it into some of the, not all of them, but some of the stewardship plans. Now, the problem we have here is in reality, the stewardship plans are just sitting there on the work on the shelf, and there's not what Michelle was asking for was she saw an opportunity here for our coordinated volunteers out there to go take a look at MS4 on these properties so she could take the data sheet and incorporate it into her annual report. Okay, and we're failing on that promise to, or anticipation to her. I wouldn't say promise.
Well,
but
right.
anticipation.
And that goes to jumping to the stewardship issue is really, we need staff. I mean, honestly, there's nothing, in my opinion, there's very little to talk about how to move forward with stewardship until we have staff to support it. Right?
well, that's back to the budget discussion.
Right, but what I'm saying is the whole stewardship section of the plan P O C D, there's really not much else to say.
Well,
Except that in order to execute, I mean, we did so much work on those this year. We set everything up. But to execute it, we need dedicated staff. And it doesn't make sense for us to keep planning and promising, oh yeah, our stewardship is gonna do it. We can't talk about these things until we have a staff to support it. Right?
I hear you. I don't wanna stop saying we need dedicated, even though I agree we do need dedicated part, is to not do anything waiting for that. I'd like to continue to search for other options. For
Wow.
example, I'll throw one out. Gee, what's a college project for next year? These three properties do an MS4 study.
And that's, we
Very
can certainly,
specific.
we can offer that to them. Doesn't mean they're gonna do
I
it.
know, I understand that, but I'm just
Right,
saying.
right, we have one little thing of volunteers that
Yeah.
we know we'll have available for next year.
Yeah, I'm just,
And that's it. I mean, we don't have anything else like coming in.
we need to look for additional little.
You gotta have, we can't be the staff supporting it. Just can't. We need staff to support the process. We barely supported the College stuff this year.
I didn't think it took that much work.
I still don't have the information to finish one of the
Oh, yeah.
reports.
Well, that's because they didn't give it to us.
But you gotta have somebody that's paying attention to all that stuff and interacting with them and setting it up. I mean, and yet, we are still working on that process, but the point is, we can't take everything out of Hyde. We need, if we're gonna do that stewardship properly, we need the staff support to do it. should we stop doing anything? No, of course not. But what we can do is minimal without staff.
Right, well. I'd like to keep pushing on it.
I didn't say do nothing, but I'm just saying it's not gonna be big implementation. I mean, the land trusts have boards and volunteers and committees and, I mean, they've got armies that, of people support, well, they have a setup of people supporting what they're doing and some of them have paid staff. It's just, we did as much as we can with us, I think.
No. We all need to get creative and what more can we do? And I think.
Well, we can have a discussion about that, absolutely.
Is there a second college option? Not college per se, but another
Similar option, right?
similar option.
Well, this is a carry forth, which you were talking about, outreach versus education. I mean, well, that's
Part of it.
part of it.
Right, that's part of it. And involving the community more to do these things.
And how we do that, how we,
Yeah,
yes.
to do that, and it strikes you that maybe specific. I mean, person is getting volunteers for foundation, to build a foundation garden. So rather than this generic, take care of the property, is maybe we gotta start doing slicing, and dicing of
Right, but
projects.
she's doing the project leader part of that, though.
Yeah, oh, I know, but she's getting volunteers.
Right, but she is doing the work
Right,
that of getting the volunteers,
Okay.
being the leader.
but MS4, Michelle is responsible for MS4.
Right.
So that could be the team leader for that. If-
True.
If we then provide an outreach of how to get access to support to do that. Saying we gotta start. Maybe parsing this out rather than, there's a lot of things in those. Plans.
Mhm.
And we gotta start focusing on, whether it's clean up garbage or MS4 stuff. Start picking pieces of that in through outreach program. See if we can line up folks that are willing to do that.
Right, but you need the staff to support the
Yeah,
process.
yeah,
You
yeah.
need the
You're-
forms, you need how they report the stuff, you need tracking the information. We need all of that goes into, you don't just, we're the town. We can't just have people, oh, come on in our properties and do stuff. So,
But Michelle has forms for MS4 report. So let's think about that rather than what we can't do, what we can do. Think positive.
I'm positive we need staff. I'm positive we need staff support.
So you'll be an advocate when we get to the budget cycle.
There you go.
Be more parks and rec staff. I mean,
Yeah.
that is a piece of this, and as we get
Exactly.
to that cycle, then I'd be looking for you to be a strong voice. To say, Mark Barry needs more staff, and here's why. And here's why it's actually better for the town, cheaper for, in the long run. But maybe by the sustainability in some form, but I don't know. Speaking of sustainability. I'm looking at it, we separate out climate change and resiliency, then we had another one, sustainability. But then we talked about sustainability being all the other pieces of it. So it was kind of a cross section. So I think that perhaps, Anne should join forces with you on that. And kind of look at those together, certainly for the climate change part of it.
Good.
Would that be more helpful? Because there's only one person on each of those.
She's looking at the community. isn't she?
No, she's got. That's a separate topic. That's not one of the PLCB 6. That's one of the additional topics that we will, social justice. But I don't think about it. And I'll reach out to Ann and ask her about it as well, because it seems to me that those are, it'd be really hard to separate them. Okay. And Ann's not here, so we can't have outreach, I guess we just talked. Waste management, we talked about that, stewardship, we talked about that. Boy, this is, now, actually, from a P O C D point of view. It's a little bit different orientation. This is the use of P O C D to maybe force improved stewardship. As a major recommendation coming out. So I'm not talking about execution here. We're talking about the sections of the P O C D.
Mhm.
So if you would consider. What form of that, obviously, we know one act, more staff. But what other things can, think about what can be in the, from an outline point of view. What should be in the P O C D? We're not gonna put all the stewardship plans in P O C D. But what should be in there? When we talk about stewardship of open space. Here.
Well, that's what I did the first time I looked through it. That's my conclusion. So, yeah, we can discuss it. It'll be one of our topics, but where do we focus so much on that. We cover the big picture.
missing
We're
my
doing.
point. I'm not-
No,
I'm
no,
not disagreeing. I'm saying is
yeah.
that we're gonna have a P O C D 2026.
Right,
In that document, we want to make sure there's some focus on stewardship that says you need to do this.
implement the plans.
It's got to be more than that, Michelle.
Right, that's what we
Because,
need to do.
because they don't know what the plan is. I mean, you're assuming people even understand what, so we need to explain,
You explain what we've done in the past year
well,
or two.
I think we have to justify stewardship. What is stewardship? How does that help the town? How does it aid the town? Then you say, we've got all this stuff about what to do. We now need to talk about implementation resources. So I don't think it's just, hey, you've got your stewardship plan going for it. I think we need more than that.
We have the background stuff, but we've had the background stuff. That's already bring the background stuff. We already know all that stuff. It's in our plan, right? So you bring that information, give the stewardship is, that's why you need it. But the next thing is, here's why you need it. We did these plans. It was in our plan, right? Our whole conservation plan. That big section would explain stewardship.
So what would you give to the consultant? So I'm willing to write a section on stewardship. What would you give?
Give them if that's what you want, here's what stewardship is, here's what the Conservation Commission has done, and here's what needs to be done next.
Okay, that's a start. I mean, we got to give them something.
So
Okay.
put it on one of our meetings for discussion. We have a massive knowledge about conservation, about stewardship. That we've covered as a group that we put together for our plan, right? What do you want to pick out of? Sure, you can, but what do we want to pick out of that? That's gonna help. Oh, that was an interesting little bug. That's gonna help support the fact that
I don't know,
We
that's my
need-
fault.
we need to be more than just, we need to be more than just words. Okay,
All right, well, I guess we'll continue to chew on each of these 6 sections. We did talk about the budget support, getting back to this, we did talk about the budget support. There's other things that we discussed in the meeting with the town manager.
Where are we on the agenda now?
We're under budget support.
Budget support.
We're still
Or
under
for-
budget support.
Well, we did some discussion earlier, but I don't want to wrap up. There's a few other things we didn't
Okay.
complete on that discussion. So we did talk about the Parks and Rec budget. We did talk about the new CIP for sustainability and open space acquisitions. Maintenance of preserved and protected open space, insufficient funds. Did look up some things on cost per acre. Which is one of the things, for example, I would ask Mark Berry his view on, because my work was like $244 per acre if it's recreational part. And Tom came up with about $55 an acre.
Yeah.
for open space, and I had like 60 based upon external research. So-
This is based on looking at some of the returns from budgetary things from
Right.
organizations such as COSA.
So getting that, what's it cost per acre, kind of says, here's what the budget should be. So that's what we're going with that. So we have some background information that want to share with Mark that says you got to go in and ask for what it does in terms of the land. I mean, 60% of the town's owned property is open space, and which include Parks and Rec. So, you know, you need to spend something. So I just gave you a couple of tidbits. So that's going to be part of the input going into the end of September. Now, the other thing is, oh, we did talk about the development subdivision ordinance. And you did some research with the law and said you don't think we could, there's not a lot of wiggle room. in that.
No, there's not. As far as the law basically says the money has to go into an open space fund, because you had proposed, can we combine the open space fund with potentially sustainability and resiliency type of stuff? And the fund, the way it's set up right now is in accordance with the state statute, which is just open space acquisition, and the state definition actually says what you can do for what's considered an acquisition cost, which it does include like the surveys and closing costs and that type of stuff, but it's nothing is in the world of sustainability and
Yeah.
climate change and all that
Thinking
type of stuff.
making a bigger pot. So. But we have that pot.
Yeah, but if you're making it, are you watering down the initial reason for the pot setup in the first place, which is future acquisition?
Right, well, that's, yeah. So that's what I'm saying is if you're trying to combine goals of what you're doing with the money.
Right.
You really can't go beyond the acquisition of land. That's when I did the research for Larry as a result of the meeting with Mr. Bird. In regard to, could we, rather than trying to come up with a new CIP, just use the one that we have right now and change the text per se
Right.
of the CIP. The problem you run into is that it's the CIP is directing the money to this specific fund. And that fund has got a lot of statutes with it in regard to what it can and can't do. So trying to expand it, I think we'd be better off going down to, my recommendation to Larry was setting up a separate CIP, a new CIP essentially for sustainability and stuff.
Which is what we discussed earlier. So we kind of wound up in that area. We had vacant land, that was that topic. I don't think we covered everything we discussed with John, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Vacant land review, there's no update to that. I suppose.
Well, other than we now have a new policy from the town council.
Right.
The 3-page 2021 version. And not the taupe that we were anticipating.
Yes.
And so we're kind of my issue is with the 3-pager is that the Conservation Commission was going to be part of the taupe, but now on this one, we're not.
But nobody is,
Yeah, well, no, the
No.
town manager still has to set up a committee,
but we have no idea who's gonna be on, it,
right?
if anyone.
So, well, should we be advocating as to have a representative from the Conservation Commission on that to the town manager? Because it says town manager will establish a town-owned property evaluation committee that will meet from time to time to review town-owned properties. All such meetings will be open to the public. And then but
Does it say how many members?
the committee will submit recommendations. I
Yeah.
don't see it.
That was part of,
That was one of the big
that was
issues.
one of the issues.
What
is that
Tope
there
was
no
saying is that-
definition in this, and
yeah.
and it basically allows the town council to continue exactly what they're doing before.
Yeah.
Which is freeze out the public and do whatever the hell they want.
Right.
Other
So-
than one hearing.
So
And then
but we should,
ignore that.
in my viewpoint,
I agree. I'll take that. I'll
Well,
take-
so you're gonna send a
Yep,
memo to
yep,
the
yep,
town
yep,
manager
yep.
saying we wish, as a conservation, a representative.
I'm
of the town-
sorry. I'll ask for a motion for the chair.
Well, unless you're telling us is you're, as you've taken the prerogative, the chair's prerogative, you've already sent a, or anticipating and sending a memo off and you're just informing us, do we have any objection
I like that.
to
Do
be
you
a?
have any problem with that? Okay.
So what are you doing?
Okay, let me back up. At the last town council meeting, if you want to listen to it, the TOP basically was totally ignored. The input was not reviewed. Was not even put on the table for discussion. And at the subsequent meeting, I think, and the next is that there was 20 people made comments at that town meeting.
Well, you had
19
a,
of
just
the
to
20
correct things, you had a committee of the whole meeting, which,
Right.
right, it was, they were, the council had three alternatives up for discussion, and the only one that got a motion was for the 2021 3-page property reuse evaluation process.
Right. that's
That
what's
got
in here.
approved at that's what's in our package tonight on page 23.
Yep.
That got approved, and then it had to go to the town council. But prior to their vote, that's the 20 people show up at the town council meeting for public input, including Larry, basically objecting to the 3-pager and recommending that you amend it and go to the full TOP thing. Since you didn't even talk about it, go to the TOP. That got motioned and defeated with a lot of rigmarole. And they're basically the 3-pager got pushed through.
So all
So.
the work you do with TOP, they just,
Totally.
Set aside and never really
aside.
reviewed in any kind of
Wasn't-
detail.
Wasn't reviewed, no comments were ever put back. There was a bunch of throwaway comments from some of the town council members, which were either factually incorrect. Just trying to think of a nice way to. Or were. Disingenuous isn't even the word. Red herrings, that's a good word. Red herrings that had nothing to do with the facts on the table. It was. If you, my statements are pattern of record. But I had said I was embarrassed at the town council performance. And that I was someone was. My statement here. Now, interesting enough, just before that. Lauren got up there and she said she was embarrassed about 6 times. That her, I didn't even talk to her before this. So the theme of the day was, and I think it was an embarrassment. It just was a bad showing. And I will point out that town council is up for re-election this November. And I'm going to reach out to my contacts in the conservation community, who, by the way, was one of the people speaking there, and see if we can make our voices heard. I said, you gotta give voice. You gotta at least listen. We know there were recommendations, but you didn't want to hear the recommendation.
wow. It sounds like
So-
you're just hitting the wall right now with all this.
Yep. So
all the stuff
anyway,
we
so
care
I
about,
was
basically.
not happy. Expressed my opinion.
Okay, then, so next you're gonna do, now that the 3-pager
Yes.
is in place,
I got it here.
so you're gonna send a
I will send a
memorandum.
memo. You know, that the Conservation Commission wants to be represented in the
On the,
the PRUC.
yeah.
Got that? Hope that. Shot before it even gave birth.
oh, it's really the Property Evaluation Committee. It's kind of dual named in here. Because town manager will establish a town-owned property evaluation committee, then in parentheses, property evaluation committee, and will meet from time to time.
Maybe. If somebody wants.
There is no structure at all as far as the makeup of the committee.
That's correct.
Yep.
At least by what's in the, right, in our packet.
That was one of my points. the actual points.
Yeah.
There's no structure to this thing. Oh, that's red tape. Any structure is red tape. Anyway, so no, I didn't, you're making me relive this. That's not good. All right, so that was not,
So
that
you're gonna
was
do a memo now in response to this, is that what you?
coming out of this session with the fact that the commission wants to be represented. I will so do so.
Yes.
Okay.
Support that.
Okay. Let's see, Groton website. I'm now thinking about, we talked about trying to use that for something. So as you're looking at each of your P O C D sections, if you want some sort of survey or community feedback, we can work it through the Greater Groton website. So we've got a contact to do that, but I would just need your input to that. So I was thinking of something of a survey of who's interested in, for example, supporting a pilot program like Stonington did for, pay as you throw. I mean, that's like one question that might be the survey that we put out there as an example.
So did you insert that on the agenda? The website is not on the agenda.
Well, outreach, it's under outreach.
Oh, okay. Didn't realize we're down to outreach.
Yes, we're down to outreach.
Skip 6 and 7.
You, and you got that email from, that I sent to you with Lauren's contact for Greater
Yeah.
Groton?
I got that. Okay, new business.
Do we have anything to say about the Connecticut
It
College?
was, I just. we
She
skipped
just told
6 and
me.
7.
Just,
What?
She just asked.
You said you got nothing from the students.
I sent to you guys today.
yes.
I updated the webpage for the native plant people with Kristen's picture, so I got a little bit more.
Oh, did I get that?
Yes.
And it's Tuesday.
Oh, that's today. Oh, I was out planting, so I
Right.
did not. I did not.
But I have a couple fall things I need to do, but it's trying to get people in the summer is,
It's tough.
Yeah.
I will keep plugging away at. Stuff.
All right. So read my mail.
Nothing new on the plans for me anyway.
All right, so what I thought we'd spend some amount of time on, so I brought my little markers on the Conservation Commission input to the town council on supporting or not supporting the Oswald grant for a GOSA acquisition of the Haley property on North Road. There was information in the agenda and the handout.
Yep.
Given the lack of interest by the town council in the past for open space, I have a fear that they just may want to stick it and say, we're not interested in supporting the Oswald grant. Just to back of my mind thought. Now, we could independently, as a conservation commission, provide a letter. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So I think there's two things here. One is, do we, as the Conservation Commission, want to support the GOSA grant request? And number two, what do we want to input to the town council based upon that decision? Okay, so kind of hard to do the second one, do the first one. So having said that,
Well, just for full disclosure here, I just kind of put me in an awkward position. I'm the guy that wrote this,
Yes.
okay, for GOSA, okay? So just for full
Good that you
disclosure.
have all
So you
nitty
probably,
gritty details.
What?
yeah,
You know, all the nitty gritty
I
details.
wanted to put you in that awkward position.
And that's fine. And so, and GOSA is going to be making the presentation, and I will be with GOSA tomorrow to make the presentation to the town council or for the committee of the whole of the town council. So they've asked me to go along with them. So just for full disclosure here. So I can answer your questions, but I feel I'm gonna have to abstain.
Yes.
You're gonna recuse yourself.
Yep.
Yes, from any kind of detailed discussion.
Notable, even better than our Supreme Court.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
Does it say in here what the
But-
cost is?
The cost is, it's in here. It's
445.
445.
That 2/3. Matter of fact, I guess the points I wanted to tick off was there's no monies being requested of the town.
Nope.
That's point one.
That's right.
Point two, the total income to the town for the property right now is 6 plus about $700 a year.
Yeah, it's on the facts of interest page on page 26 of
Yeah,
the.
so it's like $700 a year. So it's kind of like, come on, guys. So then the only real issue that I could see that they will bring up is, oh, but if this gets developed, think of all the tax revenue we'll get from a development, number one. So then the point would be, this property hasn't been developed since the beginning of time. It's not conducive for development. I'm now making my observations of Tom's comment and my own. That you look into the most houses that might go there is maybe 7. And when you run it through our model, because there's costs associated, you don't get free housing here. I mean, you don't get free town maintenance. It's a cost to that. So the net value that I calculated was 32,000 a year, for the development of the property. Now, I guess my question is, does that sound like a lot to you guys or not a lot to you? That theoretically, the town would be foregoing that, assuming they don't get the grant, assuming that they put the kibosh on it. I'm just trying to work my head around.
May I interject?
I'm sorry, Conrad?
May I interject on this point?
Absolutely.
Okay, I believe the issue that is of concern is basically nationwide housing shortage. You have people who can't afford apartments. So what I think they're probably talking about is what we were talking about when I was on the council, which is we need to get apartments in town because people can't afford to live here. People can't afford to find decent things. We know people who have to move out of town and move out of state. But the approach should be, I like that you pointed out that this property hasn't been developed since the beginning of time. You need to direct development towards already developed properties. I love to say the Mystic Rural School, but it's not going to happen. So other school properties, other town properties, central things that are already, they already have the infrastructure in place. You know what I mean? If you push it in that direction, as opposed to the tax, like the tax money that comes in is kind of irrelevant because you spend it on services. So instead, it's how many houses, how many properties can you put there? And it's a drop in the bucket. Whereas if you support GOSA, which we supported them, the council rather supported them for was it the West Sheep Farm property and
Sheep Farm South.
Sheep farm foul.
Or- exactly, something over there with sheep. But I didn't see any sheep when I was on the property. But anyways, that being said, I think that partnership with GOSA, because they maintain the lands, it becomes open space that's enjoyed by people who live here, people who come to visit. I don't see why you wouldn't support an application like that. The number of buildings or homes that you put on there is insignificant compared to the amount that we need to build. You know what I mean? So I don't
No, that's a good point, because
take it.
yeah, if there's a developer out there, I can't see any financial, let's assume it's gonna be developed. They're gonna wanna put $500,000, $1 million houses there in order to make it economical for him to do that for 7 hours. That's not a place that you're gonna put affordable housing.
Exactly. You can't get the kind of housing in there that we need.
Yeah.
And based on our zoning and all that, it's a waste of time to try and make that argument that you gain tax revenue, because you won't.
I like the argument that it's not so suitable for affordable housing, that there's a lot, that even the town-owned properties are a whole lot more suitable for that, which we have supported in the past. All right, other points? You got all the points.
Do we,
Yeah,
do you know, has then developers come to the town to ask about the property and for some, consistently been turned around and walked away because of certain aspects of it?
All I can say is that in my discussions with, with GOSA and with the real estate, salesperson that was,
Right.
that had been marketing it for since about 2014, he's been marketing it and has not had anybody. And just from a historical perspective, already was this parcel has already been subdivided once, and they put 5 houses in there. And the town received open space, and there's also conservation easements in there. Along Route 117. So they've already taken the prime 5 lots are already been taken, the easy ones to get to.
Yep.
And they were already taken and already developed. So it's already been subdivided once. And so what's remaining is the 89 acres that was not of interest to the developers. At the time, back in the that was done in around the 2008 timeframe, between 2006 and 2008.
Any other questions on the documents that were provided?
Go for it.
I'll look for, oh, you can't. All right, I'll look for a motion to support the GOSA's Oswald grant.
So moved.
Second.
Well, give Conrad a second. Come on,
Yes, I
for a
will.
sec-
I
for a second.
extend that. Yes.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, good, okay, we had 4. Four in favor, 1 abstained. Oh, that squeaks by.
Why wouldn't it? We would, Justin said their homework, why would we possibly say against it?
Just asking. Just
I'm
asking.
just,
Now, then the second question is. Going, we can provide a separate. Letter for the grant, so. As the. As the GOSA rep from the Conservation Commission. We would like to provide a letter of support from directly to the Oswald grant folks, right?
In addition to the town endorsement.
Yes, I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, they'll take they take letters of support, and they're already lining some up for, they've got some experts like the ornithology people, the biologists people, those type of people that they're actually, and they received the forester's report today as an endorsement for the property.
Is there a recommended template or something that?
I will track that down for you. I don't know if we did one for the Sheep Farm South or not, because that wasn't that long ago. I think we may have it in the file that you sent something. I know we approved it for the town, for the recommendation for the
Right.
town council, but I don't know if we sent a separate letter in for the Oswald, because the Oswald, they're looking for the town council, is that's the prime thing. It kind of, it assumes that we've supported it.
It assumed we supported it.
Yeah.
All right.
But if you have some special tickets or something that you want to emphasize in that letter, that's unique to this parcel. You can.
Yeah, I do seem to remember pulling out some unique things from.
Yeah.
From the. On
And-
that one, that pointed out.
And then we could, and if we have a formal memo going, we don't need it for tomorrow's meeting, I can
Yeah,
say
no,
that.
we don't need that for
But
tomorrow.
by the time the town council meets for the because they'll be reviewing this, assuming it moves forward tomorrow, it would go to the town council for their August town council meeting. And we could write a formal memo to that, and then we can provide a copy to GOSA for they include that in their package. Because all you're gonna get from the town is a resolution that says, whereas resolved. That's already been drafted for them.
So tomorrow night is not the final decision by the town.
No, is this the committee of the whole, but this is where GOSA makes their presentation.
All right, so let's see. Is there public comment tomorrow?
No, there's not.
So so need the next meeting.
For the town council meeting.
Yeah, when's that?
Let me pull one. Number up here.
I'm looking at it. I don't. Let me look up.
It'll be on August 1st, Tuesday, August 1st.
8-1 town council agree. Okay, so we got some time on that. All right, so all right, so with the approval of the town of the commission, I will represent the commission on August 1st in support of the outdoor green. Okay,
Sounds good.
I won't look that way. All right. Conrad,
Yes,
okay, you good with that?
yeah.
Okay. All right, so I have a little time for that. Okay. Having said that. I think that went quicker than I thought. All right, report of chair, that's what I'm going to next.
What about the new business?
That was.
That
was it,
That wasn't
The
that
Haley
property.
property is,
Oh, because it
That's
was.
the
outside
Haley
of
is
Groton,
owned.
but- Okay,
They didn't like Haley because of Haley Farm, so they.
got it.
they could put it, it's Groton, Ghost is renaming it as Center Groton Preserve
Got it.
because it's in Groton, Center Groton.
Got it.
Groton Center. There's actually, if you go to map Carta or whatever, it's actually, there's supposed to be a Center Groton Park already there. You'll see some references to that,
Thank
but
you.
it doesn't really exist.
Yeah,
But it will now. It's Ghost that goes through with this.
Because that's just far.
What? Farquhar is on the west side. This would be on the east side.
East side, right.
Yeah. And there's really no park there. There's some town open space there. There's a
On
1
the east
acre but it's really, it doesn't fit the open space criteria. It's really more drainage and that kind of stuff.
All right, I already mentioned, I reported chair, I already mentioned the joint E and Z for P O C D. That's a lot of English. Talked about the meeting with Bert, talked on the meeting with Megan, talked about the NIPS. Oh. There was a. Oh, basically, yeah, last meeting is, a memo did go out to the zoning commission on our data center position. And that got passed in food.
Without any change.
Without any change to, you know, for. What we said
Incorporating
was
our
incorporating,
suggestions.
right, green specifications for Jameson. But. Almost all developers these days are doing it that way.
Also, the GodSpace guy claimed.
They claim, well, yeah, I don't believe those guys. So. So that was that. We talked about Cope. Hartman Tower. That's going through the process, and. I did get a response, I did put in our letter. To the communications. Site. Commission. Because they sent us a letter. They sent me back a letter. That said, thank you for your letter. When and if we ever get an application for Tarpon Towers, we will get back in touch with you. So this is all preliminary stuff, so it's not a formal application that has been
You're
submitted.
talking about the cell tower?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has been submitted, yeah.
And your response was actually in last month's.
Was it last?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, no, but the response from them wasn't.
I think it did make it in time.
Did it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I
One
didn't
spots
think
that
it
we had it as part. It was right at the end, but it came in before that. So I
Okay,
think it was
sorry
part.
about that. I
That's
think
right.
That you didn't see their response. All right, a little bit of redundancy there.
So basically. Nothing to report on it.
Well, there is stuff going on. In other words, part of the process is that the knowing, since it's in their fire district, had I think it was a 30-day window to object and require a hearing. They did that. The knowing executive council then voted to authorize $70,000 to hire a lawyer to fight this. So they've done that. They've looked at a number of alternatives, one which is next door to me. So we're fighting that. Full disclosure, following in the wakes of Mr. Olson. Full disclosure is we're fighting that. We fought that off 7 years ago when they wanted to put it there, and that got defeated. So that kind of came up again. So we'll see how that goes. So it's kind of in a mushy place, and there's a hearing coming up, I forget when, where anyone in the Millbank Fire District is welcome to come, because, excuse me, that's who has jurisdiction.
The only other comment I would make is that the date that the earliest that they could submit their application to the siting council is back on June 21st. And as of today, they still haven't made their formal submittal to the siting council. And then that kicks off a whole timeline of stuff. So it's, the ball is in Tarpon Towers for submit. The next step is to formally submit a request, because they were just, everything else was preliminary. That's what we commented on, was a preliminary.
All right, report of commission members. Mr. Olson.
The only thing that we didn't cover that's in our agenda package here was the watching the bills and everything that were approved by the Connecticut State Legislature this session. There's an act establishing a tax abatement for certain conservation easements and addressing housing affordability for residents in the state. The section, this thing is like 100 pages long, but the first thing was the tax abatement for conservation easements, and basically you can put a town ordinance together that says if you have a conservation or recreation easement, that you can get a tax, abatement if you have that, if it's benefiting the town. Ledyard already has this. Okay. And they put it in place back in like the 2008, 2009 timeframe. Without the state blessing these things. And now the
Now
state's
that's an abatement from the state or from the town?
from the town,
So the town would have to.
but it's because it's all property taxes.
Right, right.
Okay.
Well, oh,
This
yeah.
is not enabling legislation that you don't need.
You don't,
Within the
you
town.
didn't have to have it, but now the state's endorsed it. Okay, is the way to look at it. And so, and from what my review is, I didn't see where the town of Groton has a similar ordinance.
Do we need it?
Well, I'll give you the example of how Ledyard is using it. Okay, the town of Ledyard is using it to support the Tri-Town Trail. Again, full disclosure, I'm a vice president of the Tri-Town Trail. Okay.
That's how
But
you know these things.
yeah, but, and so what they did is that the town of Ledyard had two properties, and there's two parcels, two privately owned parcels between them. And so to put the trail in there, they went to those two, the Tri-Town Trail encouraged the town of Ledyard planning and department to go to those two people, those two landowners, and said, hey, if you give us this strip here for the trail that we've designed, the ideal trail alignment, and make it 25 feet wide, okay, we will give you, and then all the land that's cut off between your house and the edge, the river or the creek that's there, and turn that into a conservation easement area and give that conservation easement to the town, we will give you a tax abatement, $0 on that portion of your parcel. Okay. And so after some arm twisting and a couple of years worth of thinking about it, they finally did it. And the town actually gave these people a check for back taxes from when they started the process. And then now it's all off, that portion of is off their tax rolls. So not paying any future taxes.
So in order for this to be effective, from our perspective, we would need to identify a very specific.
Potentially, yeah. I'm just using it as an example.
No, I like examples because.
Yeah.
Without something specific.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anyone would vote
Yeah.
on it. In other words, I'd rather go to the town council and say, we have this connected land between these two things, and it supports the
Yeah.
P O C D greenways, that's also.
Right now, the Tri-Town Trail isn't coming to you. Okay, I'm not wearing the Tri-Town Trail hat because right now in the Groton portion of the Tri-Town Trail is all, right now, Tri-Town Trail is working with Groton Utilities to be on their land.
Nearly.
Okay, which not require any, because of tax exempt, this would not be applicable in their case. Now, if that fails, and just for full disclosure here, where that sits right now is since for the last 3 months, the Groton Utilities Commission, which has the ultimate authority for making a decision whether they're gonna allow the Tri-Town Trail onto their property, has not made a decision. They've not had, they made the chair took the prerogative saying, I want all members present when we vote on this, because it's that level of importance. And so, and they have not had been able to get all their members, just like we can't get all our members at a meeting tonight. So they've just been kicking the can down the road month by month by month in regard to making a decision. Now, if that decision is to cease and desist, because it's going to be either continued discussions and allowing Tri-Town Trail onto their property, or cease and desist and kick Tri-Town Trail off. If Tri-Town Trail comes off, they may be coming to you potentially with this type of proposal. To link up with all their other trails, linking Gosa property with Avalonia property, with town property to make the trail.
If I could just throw a couple of things I could think of. We have a piece of property, the Sparkle Lake property on Thomas Road, the town acquired. And then we have the property next door.
There's the Birch Plain Creek Park from the on the
No, I
other
was
side.
thinking of behind the Lutheran Church.
Oh, the Joel property.
Joel property. Right. So we've always said, so one property is here, one property is here. They're very close. You can't get from one to the other because the old golf course, Trumbull Golf Course, actually owns property down the creek is.
Yeah, it's
Plain
actually
Creek.
LLC or something like that.
Right. So we've always had on the table with the town, wouldn't it be nice, some sort of connector in there?
Mhm.
And that would be a
Another
wonderful
good,
way to
another
do it.
example. Yeah.
The other is that the mayor of the city of Groton has been proposing a trail system from Sparkle Lake, goes across on the city property, which is behind, has a little park.
There's Birch Plain Creek
Birch
Park,
Lake Park.
and then there's two privately owned
Properties.
processes till you get to the Thames River school, and then onto
Right.
the
So those two properties
all the way up to Sassacus.
Are owned by the
They're apartment buildings. that own
apartment
them.
buildings there.
There's two different parcels that they have to cross.
Right, but that would be another
Good example.
good example of that.
But I don't know if the town, if the city,
That's.
again, it's city zoning. But I don't know if if this would be applicable to everybody, or just because it's, property taxes. You could make it available to the whole entire town, or you could handle it by the zoning districts, which then the city would have to adopt their own ordinance, which they can do.
Oh, I'm not proposing.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
Getting into
this,
that discussion.
that's how much this can get into a real mess, but.
But right now, before anything happened, the town would have to create the ordinance, correct?
Yes. To get any of those tax abatements. Now, we haven't seen any residents come in, but this is all brand new. This only went in effect, last week. Okay, so it's a brand new law.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see a specific example that we could then get to tonight rather
Yeah,
than the generic thing.
And that's fine. I just wanted to point this out to everybody because it's something new, and that's why I'm just bringing the topic up. I don't have any specific action, but it's just for information purposes.
Well, it's another arrow in our quiver.
Yeah.
To convince someone to set aside perhaps just part of their property with a conservation.
Yeah.
And prior to that, it was just out of the goodwill, we would go and we'd ask. And out of the goodwill of the heart, that you do it or not. We've never had a carrot that you can display with it. That formalizes, let's say, a tax abatement off of.
Yeah.
that property.
I have to admit, in my review of the 70 conservation easements I would say 90% of those, the biggest one was a court order that we got. And the other, I would say 90% of all the other ones were coming out of the planning reviews. Okay, where they give us the open space, but you also need to protect these wetland areas and that type of stuff. It's how, that's kind of the hammer that the planning and zoning has gotten in their review process. And where we've gotten easements before, but it's been for protection of wetlands permits primarily.
Right.
For that
But
reason.
then that doesn't lend itself to, let's say, a trail.
I agree, totally.
And-
That's a good point.
So that's one of the points. On the conservation question discussions we've had in the past.
Yeah.
Right, that the town's been very good at protecting wetlands.
Mhm.
But one of the conversations was that it always didn't lend itself to say that some wetlands, you just couldn't, the buffer wasn't there to put a trail next to it. Where this would be something that may encourage them.
Right. Anything else, Tom?
That's the only item I saw that was not included, already talked about.
Also,
Michelle?
Okay.
Conrad? Oop, are you there?
Sorry, I couldn't find the button. Here it is. I have nothing to add. You covered it.
All right,
So what do I have?
there we go.
All right, well, I hope you all got the little flyer about the public meeting on extreme heat. It will be July 18th at Thrive 55 at 5:30. It'll be a nice discussion about that.
the inside and air conditioning,
I know.
It's hot out
It's
there.
hot out, right?
It's hot out there.
And just something else to be aware of. This is an interesting one. I'm bringing it to you all because it's definitely. It would be under the umbrella of conservation. So there's some interesting things going on at Mumford Cove. I don't think anyone lives in Mumford Cove. You do? No,
No,
you
but
don't. You don't like
but I think,
about beach grass.
yes,
And there have been several property owners that live in that area there that are convinced that the beach grass is deflating their property values. It's getting rid of the beach. They're losing beach space. And they say it's full of ticks and, and it's bad and whatnot. So there's been a lot of conversation with the town, with lots of people, with the state in terms of removing the beach grass. So just something to be aware of. A lot of it was like, well, it's harming our property values here. We can't use the beach anymore because it's taking over. Or they don't realize
How they lose the beach.
where exactly.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. yeah.
So
You're
anyways,
planting grasses.
I know. So it goes completely against all this beach grass planting and trying to protect the shoreline there. But I just thought it was an interesting conversation that you at least should be aware of if you hear this out and about.
So this is, I guess I'm a little confused. I had not heard of this before, so I appreciate the information, but is this on the individual privately owned portions or is this on the commonly owned
It's on the
portion?
commonly owned portions that abuts the privately owned ones. So, and it's low lying, it used to be marsh. It was filled marsh to make the beach, so it's probably natural. It's very much naturalized now. They've done a bunch of dredging in the area, but a lot of the conversation was around that we need to remove this because it's causing more damage to our neighborhood than good.
the grass.
The grass, yes, correct. So just like I said, just something, if you hear, you're out and about, so.
Okay,
Yep,
anything else?
that's all I got.
There's discussions going back and forth, but I don't know that there's any regulations that prevents you from removing. If it's, let's say if it's on private grounds, I don't know.
and this is where it gets a little tricky in terms of regulation and ownership, so because we basically have the plus 2 feet and then the state has mean high water and it's very close in that area there, but some of it's higher. So, but it's been an interesting conversation. So it's the first I've ever heard that they need to remove it. And they had, one gentleman had spouted a study that he found that it was not a good thing, that each dune grass was not a good thing. And we have yet to see this report, but it's like we were talking a lot about climate and resilience and whatnot, and I think that this is definitely part and parcel
Oh,
for,
yeah, because then,
Yeah.
it's in the zone that's.
I mean, everything's
Scary.
moving and the benefits of having dunes and, not just a single dune, but having, a series of dunes to protect your property and whatnot. And so anyways, just like a little interesting tidbit I wanted to share.
Good.
Well, it sort of goes to down in Florida, they would do beach nourishment, re-nourishment, where they would pump it in. And they would do it by community, and one owner of the property in front was gaining benefit of having a much larger beach and putting the water line much further away from his property. And when it was all said and done, and it was public money that brought the sand in, he claimed down to the new water line and said that there's no public access to or public control of what the public just paid for to put there.
Well, I'm looking at the GIS for this. It's one parcel of land, 16.3 acres. It actually has an address of 3 on Neptune Drive, but it goes the entire length of in Mumford Cove, in front of all the houses that are in Mumford Cove that are on the cove. And it's zoned as R12, potentially developable vacant land. Which is, oops. So
And it's on the map.
it's on the
It's
map.
on the map, and as
Well, maybe it
as
goes in our climate change discussion.
well, I mean,
So-
yeah, I mean, this and or outreach and education and all these kind of things that are, I think a lot of the topics that you all are bringing up, there's so much overlap from all of them. Like basically stewardship, outreach, climate, sustainability really have pieces in the entire, they're woven through the whole thing. So even though they're a separate item, they're in, like similar to what Ann said about the sustainability being interwoven in there. So
So this is sort of common property,
it's common land, yeah.
Well, it's owned by the Mumford Cove Association
Association.
Incorporated.
right, but it's a house, common property, then water line.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's interesting because like, if you look at the topography there, it's pretty flat and then it goes up like this. So it's, there isn't in theory, there's not gonna be a lot of migration of the dune because of that, because it's such a steep kind of up and over, but it's just interesting.
And this also, this same parcel goes along the beach there. There's a little park down there, and then there's that little inlet that's got all the little slips and stuff. That's all part of that same parcel.
Okay,
That's all I got.
that's all you got. That's all I got.
Waiting on me.
I'm
Yeah.
waiting on
Come
you.
on, Michelle.
I move we adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
All right, so passed, so
All right.
approved.
Good night, Conrad. Thanks for joining us.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Welcome aboard, Conrad.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.